Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Xony, and today we're going to have some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further, let's go. Now let's get into today's stories to find out what happened. A 24 male and my ex 23 female were together for about 2 years when she cheated on me. She was the epitome of a good Christian girl. She was in the church choir, she volunteered at the daycare of the church that ran for lower income members, and she was very devout in her religion. I wasn't raised around religion the way that she was. My parents would bring me to church on major holidays, and that was about it. Every now and then we would go on a Sunday, but it wasn't a priority for my family. I met my girlfriend at an Easter service. I thought she was cute, but I didn't feel like church was the right place to hit on someone. There was a picnic after the service, so I decided that I would strike up a conversation with her then. When I got to know her, I learned that her religion was very important to her. She was extremely devout and valued her relationship with God more than anything. Because I wasn't religious, I thought it would pose some problems in our relationship. However, it was easy for us to get through at first. When we weren't living together, everything was fine. We saw each other whenever we could, but she still prioritized her faith. I would like to point out that she was also abstinent and waiting until marriage. We did other stuff that I won't get into. I loved her and genuinely thought about getting married to her. Originally, she didn't even want to live with a man until she was married. I didn't want to propose to someone without living with them first. I figured it would serve as a nice trial before committing to someone forever. We had a long talk, and we decided that we would rent an apartment together. There were a lot of boundaries in place, so she could keep her vow of abstinence. I never realized just how much time she spent at church until we were living together. As I mentioned, my family wasn't particularly religious, so I didn't join her most of the time. If anything, I considered myself agnostic, and it wasn't something I was willing to budge on. We were living together, our different religious outlooks became an issue. She was constantly trying to get me to go to services that she was attending, she was pressuring me to read through the Bible, and she was questioning why I felt the way that I did about religion. It started to seem like she wasn't okay with dating a non-religious person after all. I could see that our relationship was going downhill and it was disheartening. I felt strongly about her, and I thought it was a shame that we weren't able to put those differences aside. However, I wanted to work on it because I did care about her. We ended up taking a short break. We weren't broken up, but we were separating to take some time for both of us and evaluate the relationship. I stayed in the apartment and she stayed with her parents again. We met up a couple of weeks later and decided we really cared about each other and were going to give it a try. We changed a lot of behaviors that the other person wasn't thrilled about, and it seemed like things were going better. She stopped talking to me about a lot of the religious things that had been bothering me before. She joined a youth group that met on Thursday nights, so she would have some like-minded friends to talk to about her faith. I thought that was a great idea. She kept going and everything was repairing itself with our relationship. All the doubts that I had before were going away, and I was seriously considering proposing. I went with her to church for an Easter service, as I had always done with my family before. While we were there, she introduced me to a lot of the church friends she had that I didn't know. She also introduced me to the youth pastor she spent a lot of time with in the youth group. Just to clarify, because I know when I say youth group people are probably imagining teenagers and children, the youth group was for young adults, so it was mostly people in their early 20s. Right away, I noticed how friendly they were with each other. It rubbed me the wrong way. I noticed he didn't hug any other members, but he hugged my girlfriend. Something in her demeanor also shifted, and she kept looking over at him and blushing. I thought she must have had a little crush on him. He was a good-looking guy, but she was steadfast in her beliefs, so I didn't imagine they were doing anything. When we got home later that night, I teased her about it. She told me that I was silly for thinking she would have her eyes on any other man. At the time, I was confident in our relationship, so I believed her. Plus, he was a pastor at the church. I assumed he would have decent enough morals not to go after someone in a relationship. One day, she told me that she was thinking about going on a mission trip with her youth group. They were flying out of the country to help rebuild houses in a low-income area that was badly affected by a tropical storm. She had been telling me about how much she wanted to go on a mission trip like that, and I was supportive of it. I told her that if it would make her feel good about something she was doing, she should go for it. We decided to go, and I said goodbye to her about a month later when she left. We made plans to talk every night and message each other regularly. Because she drove to the church, she left her car in the parking lot to drive it back when she returned. I figured it was safe, but I stopped by one day after work just to check on it myself. When I got there, I didn't see her car anywhere. Immediately I assumed that it had either been towed or someone had stolen it when they saw it sitting there for a while. I went inside and looked for someone who might be able to help me figure out what happened. I actually found the pastor's wife, and I asked her if there were any surveillance cameras or anything in the parking lot to see what happened to her car. I explained that my girlfriend had left it in the lot when she left for the mission trip. The pastor's wife didn't know anything about a mission trip. She thought I was in the wrong church. I explained everything that my girlfriend told me, even naming the youth pastor that she was going with. The pastor and his wife both told me that they had no mission trip planned for that youth group. I knew then that my girlfriend had lied to me about the mission trip in general. If she wasn't on the trip, where was she? I had known her to be a nice, honest girl, and that wasn't adding up with the person that I knew. She wouldn't have lied about going on a trip like that. I was still talking to her and she was FaceTiming with me, so I knew she was okay. I just couldn't figure out why she lied. I did some digging online and I found some people who had gone through some similar things with their partners lying about trips. It all boiled down to cheating. My initial thought was that something was going on with the youth pastor. I didn't know where she was, but I needed some kind of confirmation about what she was doing. I was able to do this thing where I made a custom link for something I found online and shared it with her. When she clicked on the link, I could see exactly where she clicked on it from. I drove to the location and I saw her car sitting right in the driveway of a small house. There were a ton of crosses and flags with Bible verses on them in the yard, so I figured I was right to suspect the youth pastor of something. I didn't want to just knock on the door and see what was going on, so I stayed outside for a little while and kept an eye on it. Eventually, I saw both of them walking out of the house holding hands and getting into his car. I followed them to a restaurant outside of town where they clearly went on a date. They drove home not long after. I waited outside his house for a while, contemplating what to do. I heard them laughing outside while I was there, so I got out of the car to walk around to the backyard. I was able to peek over a fence to see both of them inside of a hot tub. Both of them were completely naked and my girlfriend was straddling him. From the sounds of it, they were having intimate. She hadn't even had intimate with me and we'd been together for a couple of years at that point. I took a quick picture as proof so I could bring it back. It up to her so she wouldn't try and lie about it. I went home and pretended like everything was normal until she got back. The following Sunday, when she was getting ready to go to church, I went with her. She was surprised, but it seemed to make her happy. If she knew the real reason I was going, she wouldn't have been. At the end of every church sermon, the pastor opened the floor for people to say something nice or read a Bible verse to the rest of the churchgoers. My girlfriend was surprised to see me get up and speak. I introduced myself to the church and I told them that I didn't know much about religion. I mentioned that my girlfriend was very devout and involved in the church. I even told them that I was considering marrying her. Everybody thought that was sweet and looked at my girlfriend with smiles. Then I brought up a passage from the Bible about adultery. I looked at my girlfriend at that moment and I saw her face go paddle. I told them I was excited that my girlfriend was going on a mission trip to the church. Only to find out that the mission trip was a lie. Then I explained the entire story to them. Everybody in the room was murmuring to themselves, looking between my girlfriend and the youth pastor. The actual pastor walked me away from the microphone and out of the church. He told me that he understood I was upset, but that wasn't the place to have a conversation like that. I had done everything I needed to, so I didn't really care. I went home and my girlfriend arrived about a half hour later. She yelled and screamed at me for humiliating her in front of people. I told her that she was a liar, and I had done so much to make sure she was comfortable and in the relationship, and she turned her back on me to sleep with another man. She told me that she was spiritually connected to him, and their relationship differed from ours. I told her that wasn't an excuse. If she wanted to be with him, she should have just broken up with me. I would have understood if our religion and faith were a big issue in the relationship. I told her that she needed to get out of the apartment as soon as possible. She ended up moving out to go live with her parents. I got some calls from them about how angry they were that I aired her dirty laundry at church like that. Apparently, everybody was making her feel very uncomfortable there, so she ended up leaving the church. The same thing happened to the youth pastor. A lot of the members frowned upon his actions and pulled their children out of his group. On top of that, a lot of the young adults that he worked with stopped visiting him. The church ended up looking for a new youth pastor to try and move away from the scandal all of that created.